Alright, so we finally have Miyabi's full kit for Zenless Zone Zero, and based on what I've seen from this, it is clear to me that she's going to be the strongest damage dealing character that we've gotten so far in the game. And since Harumasa is going to be given out for free for players, I expect a lot of people are at the very least planning to pull for Miyabi when she drops. So today, we're going to go over her full kit, take a kind of deep dive into what she does to see how much value she truly has, and believe me, I think it's going to be a lot of value for a lot of players here. So let's jump right into her kit, starting with her core passive here, which outlines a few of her really important mechanics. So she is the Frost attribute, which is a unique attribute to her. So whenever she applies Frost damage, she can apply the Ice Fire status to enemies she hits with that Frost damage for 30 seconds. And this effect makes it so that these enemies will take an additional amount of Frost Anomaly buildup based on Miyabi's crit rate. So Miyabi, even though she is an anomaly character, you are going to want to build her as a crit style kind of DPS because of the way the anomaly buildup scales off of her crit. So Frost as an element does have its own separate anomaly gauge, and when you do fill it up, it will trigger the freeze and shatter effects that Ice normally does, but you'll also trigger the Frostbite anomaly. And when you apply this Frostbite anomaly to enemies, and if the enemy also has Ice Fire, the Ice Fire is consumed to trigger Frostburn Break, which is a nice burst of damage that has a couple of different effects here. First, it's going to give Miyabi 1 point of Fallen Frost, and that point of Fallen Frost can only be given to Miyabi once every 10 seconds. So we will talk more about Fallen Frost when we get to more of her kit here, but it is a very important thing to be able to generate Fallen Frost for Miyabi. Then, once they're hit with that Frostburn Break attack, they are put into the Frostburn state, and enemies in this state take 20% extra anomaly buildup. And Miyabi also cannot reapply Ice Fire to these enemies that have Frostburn. And the only way to end the Frostburn state, or the only two ways rather, is either when the Frostbite effect expires, so it'll be one of the anomalies that has like a timer on it, kind of like Burn, for example. Or if you trigger any other anomaly on the team, that anomaly will overwrite the Frostbite, thus ending the Frostburn state. So yeah, I know there's a lot of words there for her core passive, but all these mechanics here really just play into being able to build up more anomalies, and getting anomalies and disorders is going to be the main thing with her kit. So now let's move on to Miyabi's additional ability, which triggers when you have either another support character or another Section 6 character on the team, which should be pretty easy to fulfill since you can just run any support character, or you can run Yanagi, who we'll talk about more once we get through more of Miyabi's kit here. So when you have the additional ability active, the enhanced basic attack will have a increased damage of 60%, which we'll go over that in a minute. Then also, whenever any ally on the team triggers disorder, so whether it's Miyabi or it's your secondary character, Miyabi will gain 2 points of Fallen Frost, and the next time you used her enhanced basic attack after doing a disorder is going to ignore 30% of the enemy's ice res, which is really good that you're getting not only a damage buff from this, but also an ice res ignore, which by itself sounds amazing, but when we get to that enhanced basic, you guys are going to see it is pretty crazy. So moving on to a regular basic here, not really too much to say about it specifically. There's just a 5-hit combo. The first 2 hits do physical damage, and then hits 3 through 5 do frost damage to the enemy. And basic attack 5 will also block enemy attacks, which is a kind of a nice thing to avoid damage if you can time it, but not really like the craziest thing or something you really need to worry about. So yeah, nothing too crazy on her basic attack, but what we really need to talk about is this enhanced basic attack here. So you can use her enhanced basic attack when you have at minimum 2 points of Fallen Frost. And by doing so, you're going to charge up her basic attack, and it's going to deal increased damage. Now, Miyabi can hold up to 6 points of Fallen Frost, and if you have more than 2, you can consume 2 more to charge it to a second stage, and then 2 more to charge it to a third stage. So if you have 6 Fallen Frost, you can charge up to 3 times, and that third charged basic attack has a ridiculous damage multiplier. I think it's like 4,000 once you have it at max skill level, which is really crazy for any character, honestly. So yeah, because you can take 6 at a time, Miyabi can hold up to 6 Fallen Frost at a time. And at the start of battle, Miyabi will also gain 3 Fallen Frost. So it should be pretty quick to get that first charge level 3 enhanced basic attack. And honestly, because of the difference in multipliers, you're really only going to want to use the charge 3. So a lot of Miyabi's gameplay is going to be focusing on getting those disorders for the additional ability to proc, so you can get more Fallen Frost stacks. You can switch her back in and just do a ton of damage. Now, for her dodge and assist, they don't really have anything super crazy to them, so I'm not gonna, go over them that much. They just work as standard, like dodge and assist, no crazy mechanics attached to them. So now, for Miyabi's EX special, she's going to deal frost damage to the enemies, which will give her 2 points of Fallen Frost. And if you have enough energy, kind of similar to Ellen's EX special, if you press the EX special button again, you'll do a follow-up slash, which will also give Miyabi 2 points of Fallen Frost. So you, with enough energy, which I believe it's 60 energy to do both hits, you're going to get 4 points of Fallen Frost, which is a pretty solid amount, especially if you're also triggering Disorder during that. That'll be all 6 that you need. So her EX special is going to be pretty powerful for that as well. Then Miyabi's chain attack is once again pretty standard, nothing really too crazy or any special mechanic with it, nothing too crazy there. So now let's move on to her ultimate, which will damage enemies in a large area in front of her. It's going to give her 3 points of Fallen Frost and will also give her a 30% ice damage buff for 12 seconds. So if you're able to, and especially with the Decibel update that we're getting for 1.4, if you're able to have Miyabi's ultimate ready, use that to gain your 3 points of Fallen Frost. Not only are you going to have the ice damage buff, but if you can also time it with a disorder, you can also get a disorder out of the ultimate, then you're going to get the extra buff, the extra ice res from the enhanced basic attack. So that's going to be really good as well. Then lastly, we're going to talk about her mindscapes. I do want to start actually to talk about character mindscapes, because I've had a bad habit of not doing that. And also I know that some people like to have a bit more investment in these characters, which I think is totally fair. So Miyabi's M1 makes it so that every point of Fallen Frost you consume during her enhanced basic attack will make it ignore 6% of that enemy's defense, which means you can get up to a max of 36% defense ignore, which is really crazy on top of all the other buffs she gives herself. And also, by using charge level 3 enhanced basic attack, it's going to automatically remove the Frostburn state and will increase all allies anomaly buildup by 20% for 10 seconds, which is really good to get even more loops of Miyabi being able to apply, Frostburn, gain the Frostburn break damage as well, and just having probably faster cycles all around. Then for M2, you get a 30% damage bonus for her regular basic attack and dodge counter. You will also gain 1 Fallen Frost when completing her basic attack, which is also going to, that's also going to make it so that Miyabi can have a little more on-field time so she can generate her own Fallen Frost without energy. And at the start of battle, instead of the 3 Fallen Frost that she normally gets, she's going to get 6 Fallen Frost and a permanent 15% crit rate buff as well, which is very strong for a Mindscape here. Then for M4, she gets a 30% multiplier increase to the Frostburn break damage, and upon triggering Frostburn break, she's going to generate 250 decibels, which I think is pretty crazy. Sure, it's an M4, so I get we're going into like super crazy territory, but this is crazy because of the ultimate update system, where now every character is going to have their own decibels. So depending on how other characters are able to get their own decibels and how much you have them on field for, Miyabi having this is going to make it so you could probably get some interesting ultimate combos with your team. Then for M6, she's going to obtain the polar status when using her enhanced basic attack, and also this will increase her enhanced basic attack damage by 30%. And when she has the polar state, whenever you charge up her basic attack, rather than it only dealing the attack at the specific charge level, it's going to deal all of the subsequent charge level attacks as well. So if you charge all the way to charge level 3 with your, with 6 Fallen Frost, it's going to do the charge level 1 attack, then the charge level 2, then the charge level 3. So you're going to get even more damage out of her with that, in addition to the buff she gets. So that is Miyabi's kit here. So now to talk about her overall value. I normally like to be like, should you pull for her? Shouldn't you pull for her? But honestly, I feel like so many like accounts are going to benefit from this character that I don't even want to be like, oh, should you pull for this character? Because I think in a lot of situations, the answer is yes. But it's important to remember, I think Miyabi will be at her highest amount of value on teams that can trigger a lot of disorder. And that's because anytime your allies can trigger disorder, you're going to get 2 points of Fallen Frost. And you always want to get up to 6 before Miyabi goes on the other field. And so she can do as much damage as possible with her enhanced basic attack. So right now, I think from what I've seen and what I've read, Yanagi's best team comp is likely going to be with Yanagi and then a support character. Like Caesar's gonna be probably the most comfortable, but then if you want probably increased damage as well, you can also be fine with other supports like Sokaku, Nicole for her defense shred, Lucy can also be solid. And since supports can also activate Miyabi's additional ability, I feel like we could see some really interesting, team setups depending on what the third character's like additional ability conditions are and how they can synergize. So we'll have to see what kind of teams people will test out. I do also think that if you don't have Yanagi like me, running another character who can do a lot of anomaly buildup to get disorders with Miyabi's Frost anomaly can be really good. So characters like Bernice and Piper, probably other characters, but I haven't seen too many people talk about other ones. Like maybe we'll have to see how Grace can do, since she does have some pretty solid anomaly buildup on her own. I've also seen people talk about Miyabi, Lighter, and Lucy being a possible team comp, as well as Mono Ice, which is also one I was kind of considering at first. But because of the way that Miyabi's kit works with wanting disorder, these two comps are going to be, while they're going to be good to get like stuns on the enemies and then buff Miyabi to deal more damage, you're going to accumulate Fallen Frost much slower, because these teams are not built around triggering anomalies and disorders. And if you're not triggering those, you're really only getting Fallen Frost from pretty much just from the like EX skill and like nothing really too crazy there. And then the Frostburn break as well. So that would lead to Miyabi needing to have more on-field time. So it's going to be a bit clunkier and not as efficient to run a team that's not focused on disorder, but it is still possible. And considering that those teams have pretty solid buffs as well, since Lighter has buffs for Ice and Lucy is just a general support. Then for Mono Ice, you would run her with Lycon, who has, I believe he has some Red Shred, as well as Sokaku, who also has attack buffs in her kit as well. So those teams can definitely still work, but I don't think that they're going to be super great. But overall, I mean, even still, like even if your team is not like the best that it needs to be for Miyabi, she's a character that's going to be able to do ridiculous amounts of burst damage, and I honestly am really excited to test her out. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull for her W engine, but I'm definitely going to try to pick up her, because I already do have a pretty solid anomaly core in my account. Now I don't have Yanagi, which is the only kind of unfortunate thing, so I might consider pulling her on her rerun whenever that happens, or whenever Zenless starts doing reruns. But I'd love to see in the comments down below, are you guys going to be pulling for Miyabi? And how far are you going to be going as well? Like, are you just going to go M0, no signature? Are you going to go M0 with the signature? Are you going to go even higher than that? Yeah, let me know in the comments down below. But with that, that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, I will see you all next time.